Godzilla may have thought he was a king, but maybe there's another monster that might dethrone him. Here's your look at the brand new Hiya toys. This is the Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah Exquisite Basic King Ghidorah. The second item in the classic Godzilla Exquisite Basic series is King Ghidorah from Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. The Exquisite Basic King Ghidorah action figure stands 13 inches tall with an 18.5-inch wingspan, faithfully reproducing every detail of Ghidorah's appearance from the 1991 film. Crafted with meticulous attention to detail, the figure features multiple joints throughout its body, PVC wings with eternal wires for an authentic look, and a wide range of articulation. It also includes 3 stands to recreate his various combat scenes from the film. 3 heads and no arms? This guy must be impossible to clothes shop for. If you're looking to shop around and find Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, just mark it on your calendar. This guy is slated to drop in June 2025 in many of the online sites that have listings for Hiya toys. Just know as well, this guy's going to be going for a $99.99 price point, which is under $100. And considering how much we get here for King Ghidorah, that's an amazing price. Now, this mold looks like it's also going to be used again, as Hiya Toys is slated to drop as well a battle-damaged version of King Ghidorah that's going to be dropping in February 2026. A year from now, or a little less than a year from now, he's going to be selling for the same. And then in July 2026, they're also going to be releasing a Mecha King Ghidorah, and he's going to be selling for about $20 more. I think he's selling for $119.99. So there's going to be a lot of King Ghidorah going around, courtesy of the folks over at Hiya Toys. Without further ado, of course, let's take our tape measure and let's just, let's do our thing. So we're going to first start with maybe the middle head. Not that it really matters, because the heads are always almost about the same height, depending on, again, how you really want to pose them. If we want to go just to the head alone, I know his wings are really technically taller. King Ghidorah is going to stand at 9¼ inches. That's just, though, to his head. That works out to be about 23 centimeters tall. If you want to go to the full extent, though, obviously you're going to want to go to his wings. Now, again, the wings can be moved around, but in the configuration I have right now, let's go to the highest point, and King Ghidorah with his wings is then 12 inches in height, or roughly about 30 centimeters tall. I guess really don't need to board the time machine from the Futurians, because a couple of days ago, though, we also had to look at the 1991 Godzilla, also from the folks over at Hiya. To compare the two together, I mean, clearly there's a size and advantage going to King Ghidorah when it comes to the mass, when it comes to the firepower, but Godzilla still holds his own, though. But that's what the two figures look like side by side. I can't help but notice, looking at the read-up online, that it also makes mention of 3 stands to recreate his various combat scenes from the film. I didn't have any stands inside the packaging, and I wonder if that's just an afterthought, that maybe they had planned at one point to include stands with King Ghidorah, but the figure is basically coming with everything that you see right now. No assembly, though, was required. That's a good thing as well. Like, I'd hate to think that I'd have to start forcing things together in order to get his wings on, in order to get his tails on, his 2 tails on. But everything you get with the figure is already attached to the figure when you take him out of his clamshell casing. With that being said, though, let's get a closer look at King Ghidorah. There's a lot in 3s, there's a lot in 2s. Let's look at the 3 things first, that being, of course, his heads. Now, the heads do look like they're all identical with one another. I don't know if there's a difference, really, with King Ghidorah's 3 distinct heads, because I don't think they are distinct at all. I mean, somebody that knows a lot, maybe more about King Ghidorah, could probably tell me down below, but I think from what I understand, it's not really until he becomes Mecha King Ghidorah that he changes his look that much. The head sculpts, though, are incredible. I can't imagine the amount of detail and work that went into sculpting these things from scratch. Each one of the heads, as you probably would imagine, being that they seem identical, all have the same levels of posability to them as well. If you look at, though, like the spikes on the tops of their heads as well, the spikes seem a little bit softer in plastic, but the majority of the faces are a good, solid, dense plastic. I love the way that you can open up the mouth to quite a good extent as well. And they have sculpted the tongues, although disappointingly, the tongues are permanently attached to the bombs of the jaw. Now, when we looked at the 1991 Godzilla, for example, his tongue was a kind of floating piece. It would have been cool if they could have done something similar here with King Ghidorah's, just so that when you open up the mouths, there would be at least like a kind of a levitating tongue. But that's a small little criticism for the fact of how cool and how incredible this guy actually looks in hand. He's all done here, obviously, here in gold. Again, a lot of the paint goes into, obviously, the faces just alone, because not only would they had to have relied on just the gold plastic, but to go then in there and paint the teeth, paint the eyes, as small as those eyes may be. And again, between that head, this head here in the middle, and the one off to the side, they all look to be exactly the same. The posability also is one thing that we're going to touch base on when we get further into this review. Don't want to spend so much time talking about the articulation when there's so much more time really that we can talk about how much sculpting went into not only the undercarriage of this, but also on the tops as well. If you look at the bottom of the belly of King Ghidorah, it really reminds me of the classic Aquaman, just the way they've sculpted scales like this. It doesn't look like it really has much in the way of a wash, unless perhaps maybe they had cast this in a lighter gold plastic and then had painted the gold over top of it, because then maybe this metallic gold would have been a hard thing to cast straight from the mold itself. But the actual scaling, though, is clean. I mean, again, while there's not really a whole lot of extra wash added to this, you can see how the scales change their form a little bit on the undersections of the King Ghidorah's individual necks, all three of them. Of course, you've got these large, stocky legs, very actually similar to what we got with Godzilla. The feet themselves, well, again, he doesn't have arms, unfortunately. Could you imagine how more of a threat he would have been if he actually had arms? But the feet, again, are nicely sculpted. I do like that they've actually made the feet flat. There's no real need, I feel, to make the feet textured like this or give an underpad, because it would just cause balancing issues. Keep the feet, I feel, good and flat, because then you can have a nice stable base for King Ghidorah to stand upright. And so far, knock on wood, he stands pretty well. He is a little loose in the knees, but not loose enough where I feel worrisome that the figure's going to have a tough time standing upright. Again, he's a really nice sculpting, though, for the feet, the claws. Only 4 claws this time around. It looks like they've only just really painted the claws individual colors. Now, Godzilla, they went in there and actually darkened a color at the top and then kind of transitioned the color down. It actually looks like with King Ghidorah's, it's more kind of just a very dark gold. Nice looking feet, though. Obviously, one thing about the King Ghidorah is the fact he has these giant wings. The wings are not soft plastic, but just to kind of show you guys how much flexibility there is to it, it's very similar to like a superhero cape. It's more of a rubber plastic, and I guess doing that too, if they had made it a hard, rigid plastic, there could be a likelihood that the wings could potentially break. With this, though, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't really recommend that you guys go in there and start to bend the wings around, but it does at least give you an idea that the wings have some flexibility to them. Again, like the read-up does say that there's a wire built into these, but yet I mean, you can probably maybe gauge that there's a wire that runs from this side out. Maybe not on the bottom section of the wing, but yeah, maybe on the top you can bend the wing a little bit. So if you want to kind of have a curved formation for the wing, it is possible. There's a hinge right here as well. That will allow, of course, the wings to move back and forth. So, it doesn't really move up and down, really, where the limitations for King Ghidorah when it comes to at least flapping his wings only means that he can only do it back and forth this way. Again, to put in a posable ball joint would be a very difficult thing, I would imagine, especially for the size of the figure's wings like this. And of course, one of the other things too is that King Ghidorahs were known for having double tails. The tails themselves look, again, identical to one another. They have these kind of bird cacti on the end of them with all these very sharp spikes. The spikes are fairly sharp, actually. If you put your finger against them, you can certainly feel them against your skin. But again, like these would be things that he would use as whipping weapons. The actual tails themselves are impressive. I mean, look how many links alone each tail has, and then just take that and multiply it by 2. Speaking of multiplying, there's going to be also a lot of multiplying going on when it comes to the figure's articulation. So let's do our best, and I hopefully do my best not to forget any of them. So each of the heads, you would imagine you're going to do this one thing, and then you can just do it times 3. So each of King Ghidorah's head is going to be on a ball joint. Those move up and down. You can also rock them back and forth. And again, they also have the mouth articulation. So you can open and close the mouths that way. From there, just again, that idea times 3. Each of the individual necks, though, not that I really want to spend a whole lot of time in this review to count off individual links, but, well, there's like 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, perhaps 6, 7, 8, and 9. Maybe there might even be 10. With all those 10 collectively, you could imagine how much you can really be able to do with King Ghidorah. A cool pose maybe would be have like the heads, the necks on some of the sides be extended out like this, and maybe the one in the middle is leaning forward. That might be a cool pose. But again, there's a lot you can really do with the necks themselves. Now, when you get to the torso is going to be on a ball joint. So that moves back and forth. It does move up and down. It doesn't really move up and down too much, but you imagine there's a lot of sculpt that has to kind of work together. This is as far to the extent of what you can actually do with the torso. Not really much, though. The legs do hinge out. If you were to look at the legs and try to split them out, this is as far as of a splits that you'd be able to pull off with the King. You can take the legs and move forward and move them back. As mentioned, though, I did notice that with mine, they're a little loose in the knees. Not loose to the point where I feel like the legs are starting to get floppy. Not to either the point either where I feel like it's going to have a hard time to hold the figure upright. Because keep in mind as well, you can also use the stability of the back tails that kind of help hold him up. He's going to really rest between his legs, rest on his legs, and the back of his tails. Those two things together will work hand in hand to keep the figure upright. The legs move forward, the legs move back. Again, you got the double hinge on the knee that allows a little bit of rotation there as well. Both feet move back and forth with the ankles. You can also move them up and down this way as well. For the back wings, now again, while the wings don't swivel, they don't move back and forth to where you'd be able to kind of swing them upright. You can at least flap them forward and back. There's only this much range to work with. That's how much you really have to be able to flap the wings. So you can bring, again, the wings forward if you want to have them all the way leaning forward. Or, like I did at the beginning of this video, you can kind of arch them back a bit, depending on really, again, how much space that you have. And again, when it comes to the tails, there was one thing I did want to mention. I'll mention it kind of as we wrap up this review. As for the tails themselves, again, you want to count them off with me. There's got 1, we got 2. Kind of spiky, again, when you put your fingers against these. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? 9, 10. We're still going. 11, 12. Some of these I'm sure will be phoned in. I don't think that all of them are individually linked. Although, again, like if you put your fingers against these, all of them seem to independently move. So maybe we might even get a full 10. The tail itself also, even the spiked ends, and yes, they are very spiky, do move forward and back. You can rotate them all the way around. The only one thing I will say, though, about King Ghidorah, as impressive, and yes, he is very impressive to have in hand, and even just to look at him like this. The one and only concern I have, though, is with the wings being a softer rubber like this. Granted, I've only really had this figure out of the packaging for maybe about 2 hours, and I've obviously had some fun kind of moving him around and posing him in different poses. The one thing I kind of have taken away from this, though, is with the wings being this material like this, I wonder if the weight of the material over time will cause these wings to droop. Now, keep in mind, one of the precautions that they may have put in place is that they have a wire built into this. With the wire in this, they might add some stability to it, but I don't know, I maybe think that with the weight of these wings and the fact that there's only just a single hinge kind of keeping them up, I wonder, though, over time, if these wings will start to flop down. Because, again, like, you really got to think about it. Like, there's these big, heavy wings. They're about that long. And, of course, when you look at the size of the main body in the middle, that's a lot of weight on the ends of the wings to keep upright. And maybe, again, like, had they included these stands that they had advertised online, because like the read-up, when I was looking online for King Ghidorah, said 3 stands to kind of help get him in poses. I wonder if maybe stands could have been beneficial. Yes, I know it loses the illusion. You don't want to have a cool figure on the shelf and then have these notable posts visible on the front of it. But by incorporating like clear, like acrylic posts, something that maybe could have plugged onto the bottoms of his wings, it could have maybe helped keep the stability of the wings. Again, I don't worry so much that the wings are large. Large isn't so much of the issue, because obviously King Ghidorah is going to have large wings. My big real issue, though, is with the material being this kind of material that they've used, that softer kind of rubbery plastic, and with the weight of them, I wonder if over time, again, those wings will start to droop, or the hinges, dare I say, will start to loosen over time. As he is right now, he is an incredible looking figure. And I can certainly understand why they would want to get as much mileage out of this mold as they can. This is, again, like the standard classic 1991 King Ghidorah. Then they're going to be releasing in next year, between February and July, a battle damage version of this guy that's going to be a little bit more torn, a little bit more tarnished. He's also going to have torn wings after his battle with Godzilla, speaking of the 1991 Godzilla. Then after that, we don't have to wait that much long. A few months after February, we're also going to be getting a Mecha King Ghidorah, which again is probably going to be using a lot of the same mold that we've seen throughout this review and incorporating some robotic elements. If you're a fan of King Ghidorah, definitely venture into the territory. Like even just say, like, you haven't not collected any Hiya toys. Hopefully reviews like this have persuaded you. If you're a big fan of the original Toho films, loved the look of King Ghidorah, considering as well that this guy is listing right now, even though he's not dropped yet, he's going to be dropping this month alone. He's selling for $99.99. I can't believe $99, or about $100 for a King Ghidorah that's this big, that's this impressive, that's this posable. The more I look at King Ghidorah, the more I think Hiya's going to have a harder time to reuse some of those molds that we get from this figure. In fact, looking at the two, the only thing I can think that they probably will be able to borrow over from the original one is perhaps some of the links for the tail, the two side necks, and the heads that are attached to them. The middle head obviously is going to have a robotic head. It's going to have robotic parts in the torso, in the wings and even the lower legs. So while I think they probably could use a lot and lend over to the battle damaged King Ghidorah, I don't think that there's going to be much to be made when it comes to the mecha release that's coming out next year. Speaking of next year, though, I know we're going to have to wait a little while. This one's slated to drop this month, so if you're looking just to get your hands on a classic look to King Ghidorah, this is the one that's going to probably do you fine. And again, for $99, that's not a bad price at all. Next year, though, wait around February. February, we're going to begin the battle damage release of this guy, and then a few months after that, July 2026. Mark that on your... Well, you'll have to mark it on next year's calendars, but next year in July, you're going to be able to get your hands on Mecha King Ghidorah. All again for a reasonable asking price. You know, it's one thing, again, to look at these figures and then think what other companies... You kind of have to look at something like what Hiya is doing. Ask yourself this question. If another company was doing this, how much would they charge for it? Well, I mean, like, even just as a reflection, Bandai is releasing, I think, a Mecha King Ghidorah. I think what they've got planned, or maybe if it's Bandai Spirits, I think that is still an extension of Bandai. They're going to be releasing, though, a Mecha King Ghidorah for $279.99. Not really being able to have the Bandai release in front of my hands right now to be able to see the differences between the two. I'm more happy to pay the $100 for a King Ghidorah than $280 for a figure that might be the same size. It's a fantastic figure. I mean, I would say, like, if you are a fan of the original Toho Godzillas, this would be one you may want to add to your shelf. Yes, granted, though, he's going to take up a lot more space on your shelf, but I think it's well worth the sacrifice if you're getting something like this in hand. A big thank you again to the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new Godzilla 1991. This is the Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, and we looked at King Ghidorah himself. The true king of the monsters? You can let me know down below. If you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid down, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? Yeah, I hope so. We don't really have a whole lot more lined up for Hiya Toys. If there may be a couple that might be popping up for this week. If not, though, I would certainly encourage you guys, if you want to have a look at some of the stuff that I've done in the past for the company, popping up at the very end of this video, yes, will in fact be a playlist. Feel free to give that a look. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.